Well, the fun thing to do is to start with a question. Have you ever had a nickname that stuck? Like a nickname that like you have them growing up. You think, okay, I'm 11 or 12 and my nickname is, you know, Laserface or whatever. And you're like, and people are like, "Hey, what's up?" And you're like, "I'm Laserface now." And they're like, "Okay, cool, Josh. Whatever." And they never call you it. You're like, "I'm Laserface, man. Come on." Because I like lasers, you know, and people just don't do it. For some reason, I never could get a nickname to stick until I was in college, and then there was a Spin Doctors song, and if you don't know who the Spin Doctors is, or ask your parents. And there was a Spin Doctors song called Biscuit Head, and it was about somebody with a big head. When I did have hair, it had a lot of body, and it was huge. It was like a sort of a Q-tip kind of light bulb on a pencil kind of situation. Um, and my roommates used to call me Biscuit Head after this Spin Doctor song. Biscuit Head, you got a biscuit head. Anyway, so that is the only name that stuck, and I spelled it funny because I just had to be different. So Biscuit Head is the only nickname I ever had that stuck, and they called me that. And there are people who call me Biscuit now, um, 35 years later. The only nickname I ever had that stuck. But I love that it was a nickname that it said something about the time, right? It said something about that time in my life. I was leaving home, I was going to college, I was finding my own voice. So I had this new name sort of bestowed upon me by the circumstances, right? And it was the Spin Doctors. Spin Doctors were incredibly popular in the mid 90s. And so I was tying myself to the culture, and there I was, and I was Biscuit Head now, and that's what people knew me as, and it was so cool, right? It said something a little bit more than just having a fun name or whatever else. Um, Jesus had a favorite nickname for himself. That's what I'm getting at here. Jesus had a favorite nickname for himself that he calls himself a lot. It's not Son of God. It's not the I am. It's not Messiah. It's none of the titles that we might use for him all the time. What he called himself all the time was Son of Man. Son of Man. And he called himself Son of Man 78 times in the Gospels. The Son of Man. The Son of Man, just a few examples. Do you believe in the Son of Man? That you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins. The Son of Man comes in his glory with the angels. There's a lot of references to the Son of Man. And it's a huge question as to like where this title came from and what in the world it means. So for me, I thought for sure it meant like solidarity. Jesus is a son of man, like one of us. He's one of us, right? Like a son, daughter of Eve, or a son of Adam in the Spare And this is Spare Studios, is where I shoot this show. So, and I thought for sure it was that. I thought maybe it was some sort of title in that sense, and I would read it that way, but that was incorrect. And I didn't find this out until I went to seminary that it actually has other roots. So what we do is we look back into what Jesus is drawing on, and that was the Old Testament at the time. So the Old Testament, there are two possible sources for this. One is very strong, and one is meh strong. So first of all, we have Ezekiel. Ezekiel, the prophet Ezekiel, and his visions. God calls him Son of Man regularly in talking to him. He says, Son of Man, do this. Son of Man, do that. Son of Man, you see this vision. Son of Man, draw a picture of Jerusalem on a brick, and all this sort of like street theater stuff that Ezekiel was supposed to do to get his point across. And it seems to be in that connotation, Son of Man, as in, you have seen the Lord, you are just a son of man, right? You are a part of the frail and delicate and breakable human story. And who are you to behold the things of God and the face of God? So that Son of Man is kind of a diminutive title. And, similar to like Isaiah, behold, I have come undone. I have seen the Lord. I am falling apart. Psychologically, I am melting, basically. And that's kind of the Son of Man connotation in these mentions in Ezekiel, and he actually calls him that 80 times in the book of Ezekiel. So it's in there a lot, but it might not be what Jesus is referring to. So the one that we probably would want to spend the most time on, let's see how this works here, is Daniel chapter 7. By the way, forgive me, we're only on episode 2 here. I don't introduce myself. I'm Pastor Josh. You're watching FlipChart Bible. Bad drawings, good word. Bad drawings, good word. I promise you bad drawings. I am not good at drawing, and I really am not even good at handwriting, really. But I love to teach, and the word is good, always good. My teaching's okay, but the word is always good. So bad drawings, good word. As a pastor, I often teach Bible study, and I oftentimes find myself gravitating over to the flip chart or to the whiteboard or whatever's in the room and saying, man, let me break this down for you. This is so cool. So that's kind of what I wanted to do. People were like, you should put that on the internet. I was like, sure, that's never been done. Nobody has Bible shows. No competition in that space. Fine. Okay. Anyway, bad drawings, good word. Back to Daniel 7. Daniel 7, Son of Man, appears for us in verses 13 and 14. Let me just read that out to you here. I saw in the night visions, and behold, with the clouds of heaven there came one like a son of man. And he came to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him. And to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom one that shall not be destroyed. Behold, there came one like the Son of Man, and he was presented before him. So what you have on the clouds of heaven, right? Clouds of heaven, here's the clouds, this is heaven, and was presented before the Ancient of Days. Now the Ancient of Days, that is the Old Testament word for God, the presence of God, the person of God. So here's God, he's seated on the throne. The Ancient of Days you can never see. He sort of dwells in this unapproachable light and glory. And the Son of Man, that's what's interesting there, is the Son of Man is this mysterious figure that is presented before the Ancient of Days and is able to talk with the Ancient of Days and is given by the Ancient of Days glory and a kingdom, given dominion and glory and a kingdom. So this is really quite a thing, and this figure is given this. And what you have in several places then in the New Testament is places where Jesus makes reference to this particular passage. Mark 14 and 62, and Jesus said to him, and this is when he asks, are you the blessed one? This is the high priest talking to him. He said, I am, and you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming with the clouds of heaven. So clouds of heaven, right hand of power, right? Seated with the right hand of power. Now, the interesting thing here is that in the period between the Old and New Testament, which we call the intertestamental period, there was certainly, life was still going on. Faith was still going on. Faithful Jewish people were continuing to read the scriptures, interpret them, try to understand their lived experience alongside the promises that God had made for them. So there's plenty of interpretation and other things still going on. And one of the things they did was that this Son of Man character grew in this religious imagination. So people were thinking a lot about the Son of Man. And Son of Man, he's the character. Whoever Daniel was talking about, he's the one who's going to come and put things to rights. He's going to make it the way God wants it to be, right? And they connected that with Psalm 110, where in Psalm 110 it says, the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. So sit at my right hand, right? It's very similar to this Son of Man imagery. Jesus puts these things together as the rabbis would have, that he would have heard them doing when he was growing up. He puts these things together and says, I am, and you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power, right? And then Matthew 24:30, then will appear in heaven the sign of the Son of Man, and all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Right? We see that Jesus is making this reference to himself. He's taking a powerful Old Testament reference, which has grown in its significance in the commentary and culture that has developed even after the Old Testament was closed. The Jewish people living there with the Old Testament and interpreting it and reading it, the Son of Man character has grown. They've been in a bunch of persecution. They've been taken over by a bunch of other countries. It's been a very sort of forsaken time. And they're often fixating on who the Messiah is or how God will put things to rights. And the Son of Man was a kind of apocalyptic figure that loomed large in their discussions of how God was going to put things to rights. And Jesus identifies himself with that Son of Man character. So we live in a time right now where our culture is trying to disconnect. Our culture, it's interesting. I went to a fundamentalist college for a couple of years. I went there prepared for what the secular world was going to try to do to me, right? How they're going to try to change my mind or persecute me as being Christian and that kind of thing. And I didn't find that when I got out in the world. I mean, I went to a small other college in a small town in the South. But I went out in the world and found that people were not particularly, they weren't anti-Christian. They just really didn't care. And what they liked, what the culture appreciated, was our values, our kindness, our love for other people, our love for the poor, the good things that we've done. And what kind of the trend is right now is, if you could take those values away from your belief system, and we can have those, and we can work with those. This other stuff you got to leave behind, though. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you put in this placeholder here, right? But as Christians, that's those things, we can't pull those things apart. The beliefs we have about Jesus, who he says he is, and what he promised, and what he's coming back to show us, those are all beliefs that empower those values, that give us the strength to be kind and to love people because they are made in the image of this God, right? This God who comes for us and loves us. This God who one day, as the Son of Man, will make it all right and will end all things. Jesus is not just your best friend you play guitar for and somebody whose example you can follow. He is also this frightening, nightmarish figure. And in the end, grace wins. Grace wins in power. So the Son of Man, in a way, is a Son of Man. He's a son. He's one of us. He participated in our frailty. And the Son of Man is also somebody that Daniel saw and said, it's like looking through a telescope at a reflection of a facsimile of an approximation of a shadow. I don't know what I'm looking at, but it's terrifying and beautiful. And Jesus is both those things. He is both those things. And we have to hold both those things in tension to follow him. Pax Humana. Cheers.